let's quickly
check
touch
out.
on the next gen game that will soon be last gen. Let's touch on that.
Huh?
Oh,
I was surprised when I saw this, by the way, because EA had their investor call yesterday. I haven't listened to it yet. I will, because I'm a sucker for these kind of Andrew Wilson talking about all players across the globe. And I just love that. They're using so many words that you're like, wow, you really said nothing, but you
yeah.
were talking for like 10 minutes.
We want
I
to
love it.
empower players to have a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
time in all
The
of our
pa-
games.
The passion of our development teams across the globe
The
is on
amazing
an
talent doing the weird thing that politicians do where like they cradle their thumb for some reason and kind of point at you with the stub of their thumb. Now that I pointed it out, you'll never be able to unsee it. Politicians do it all the time. They're like, and let me tell you this. Like, what are you doing?
I thought they were holding like a device like for their PowerPoint presentation or something.
Maybe back in the day? I don't know. It's so like unnerving now. I see it all the time when they're talking and they go like this. And it's just the most uncomfortable looking thing. Like, just point at me. I'd rather that. It's like, just do that. Anyway.
That's harsh, though.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, but they announced that Star Wars Jedi Survivor that is they will harness the community's passion and capitalize on key Star Wars franchise moments to drive continued engagement for this incredible game. That's a real quote that they said.
A human being said that.
Yeah. So, and thanks to the strength of our development team has committed to bringing Jedi Survivor experience to PS4 and Xbox One. And the game can't even run properly on
That's where
Xbox
I'm at,
Series
dude.
and PS5.
It like doesn't run well even now, and they're gonna get this working on a like the equivalent of a potato. Like, come on, what are we doing? And you're right. Like the way he phrases this: over the coming year, we will harness the community's passion and capitalize on key stars. For I just like a human being speaks like this is just amazing. I mean, but it's also, I guess, not a surprise because there are still millions and millions and millions of Xbox One and PS4 players out there that frankly don't have the money, believe it or not, to
But
drop
still want to play Star
$500.
Wars.
Yeah. And if this were available to them, it's much more palatable to purchase what's going to be probably a $60, $70 game for their outdated console instead of having to pony up $550 or $600 for all of it for the next gen console. So I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, but it's baffling that they're doing this before they've even fixed the current gen stuff.
Yeah, that's one side of it, and the other side is just disappointment. Like, I thought Jedi Survivor was gonna be that next step. Was like, we're almost 3 years into this life cycle, and we're getting games that pretend that they are exclusive, but that can still run on the. Then you're not like, this is basically the same as Hogwarts Legacy, but only there they were upfront about like saying, hey, this is basically a PS4 Xbox One game. We will launch it later on those platforms. They wanted to launch it the same day, but they pushed it. And eventually it came out in June, like 4 months, or no, even more. Like almost half a year after the game on PS5 and Xbox Series. And yeah, I mean, it's running on Unreal Engine 4, so it kind of makes sense as well. But I just thought they were doing that because Unreal Engine 5 was not really, like, I think, like, not a lot of developers were using it when they started Jedi Survivor at the start of 2020. So I really thought when they announced the sequel, or when I was like fantasizing about the sequel, whoa, this is gonna be the next step because it's gonna be PS5 exclusive. I did not think that 3 years in the life cycle we would still be having PS4, Xbox One games.
Well, I was just going to say, it reminds me of what a lot of these executives were saying, like back in 2018, 2019, where a lot of them were like, well, we don't see console generations as being as hard and true and hard and fast as they have been in years prior. We kind of see technology, I forget what executive said it, but they were like, we see the console market as a living, breathing market where all of the games should be able to launch and flow between each other. Basically, they wanted to make sure that they could launch a game like Jedi Survivor and also sell it to the 100 plus million user base over here. At the same time, they're also capturing this newer fan base over here. And again, it makes sense, but like you mentioned, it is holding these games back. Like they are not being designed in a way where the designers are like, okay, well, we're just going to make this and we're going to crank it to the max to use what the PS5 has to offer. And instead, they're constantly asking themselves, okay, but could this run on like a 2013 hard drive? Yeah? Okay, then we're good. And that's just frustrating. And you can feel it in the level design. You can feel it in how they build these things out. And hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next couple of years, once we start seeing more games like Spider-Man 2 and potentially even like Phantom Liberty and releases like that coming along that really push the technical boundary, we'll start to see more studios abandoning last gen. But it's frustrating, like you said, 3 years, almost halfway. I mean, at this point, we probably are halfway through the generation.
And
we're still seeing
can't remember. Yeah, and I can't remember a game like going back. Like I think, because I think you're probably right. This was probably the plan from the start, but it's also usually they announce it from the start because then those people can get excited about the game as well. Like now, everyone who had a PS4 and Xbox One was already riding it off. Like I'm not gonna get this console for the next 2 years, so I'm not gonna bother with Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Like maybe, and this might be a crazy like theory, maybe this was not the plan, but the sales are not as good as they expected. And they're like, how much does it cost to port this? How much are we probably going to extract? Let's do it.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if that was the case because there's still an early like phase of porting this game.
Yeah.
So probably 2024 when this PS4 Xbox One version is going to launch.
But I think you're right. Like it could have gone either way. It could have been that they were planning on this from the start and it was just like, oh, we're going to pitch it and sell it as the next gen version of Jedi Fallen Order. And so it's like, you got to buy it because it's the cutting edge version of that. We're going to have like ray tracing that barely works. Everybody loves that. And then they decided behind closed doors, then after everybody's given up hope that they can't play it, we'll announce that we're bringing it to the PS4, and those people will get super excited and hyped because now they can play this game they didn't think they could play. And so then we'll get both communities really excited, and the only time that we break the devastating news or the disappointing news to the people on PS5 and Series X is after they've already bought it. So we don't care. It makes sense. I would be shocked if they hadn't planned this, but it also I would also totally buy.
Yeah, but then they would be farther along, and why not announce it at the same time? Like that's kind of my thought. But like you said, like they must be, like making this game with a potential port in mind. Otherwise, you would hope that they go far beyond what is possible. On those platforms.
Like, have you seen those videos of Ratchet and Clank running on a hard drive? The PC port? It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's because they built the game, at the very least, expecting very tight memory management and then also potentially like the PS5 SSD speeds and everything involved there. And, that's because that game is built for the current gen. At the least, that's what they pitched to everybody. But this thing, I try to think of something that Jedi Survivor does that couldn't, in theory, work on a last gen console in terms of like scope or scale. And there really isn't anything. Like, it's very, very similar in
Oboe
scope.
is gonna be like a frame drop fest though. Like that already has issues like running normally on a newer gen console. Like they are doing some interesting things where the world is repopulated at some point with new enemies, and they're constantly like fighting each other. Maybe they're dialing stuff like that back because Fallen Order did not really have those moments. But yeah, we will see. I'm happy for more people that they can play it. Like that's another way to look at it, I guess. But I just wish that now, like if you are someone like you also want the best, what is best for the games. And the best for the games is now to finally move on.
From the 10-year-old hardware, for the love of God.